Today, I'm joined by Samantha Clarke, a happiness consultant, global changemaker, TEDx speaker, and author of Love It or Leave It: How to Be Happy at Work. I followed Samantha's work for a long time now, and I knew that she would be the perfect guest to stimulate our thinking in season 10. What I admire about Samantha is her courage and curiosity to dive into areas of work that are yet to be brought to the mainstream. Samantha really makes me think differently about our experience of work, and so I know our conversation today will offer both inspiration and action. So let's get started. Hi, Samantha, and welcome to the Make It Thrive podcast.
Hello, Lizzie. Thank you so much for having me.
It is an absolute honour of mine to have you on the podcast because I remember coming across your work many moons ago at a Guardian masterclass. I was there for a full day event and
Okay.
you were one of the speakers and I was so inspired. So I've been following your work for a while
Oh,
and it's been fantastic to get you on the podcast. You've been in a list of my absolute must-haves on the podcast.
oh, well, thank you so much. I'm glad. Was it one of those leadership days, or it must have
Oh,
been a
you know
January
what?
session?
I can't remember. It feels like so long ago, because of COVID and everything.
Yeah.
Everything feels slightly extended. So even if something was like 2 years ago, it feels like 4 years ago.
Yeah, I totally understand.
But in terms of you as a happiness consultant, do you
Mm.
want to share your journey with how you came to this place?
Yeah, so I guess I've had quite an eclectic work journey. I kind of started out in the kind of heady world of advertising and branding, and really feeling a little bit of dis-ease in an account management position. I just felt like a weird go between the client and wanting to be a lot more strategic. I love the consumer behavior side, but also just wanting to delve a little bit further. And I think I wasn't feeling nourished by some of the brands I was working with. And that led me to kind of think, okay, well, how do I make the most of my evenings? What else am I doing? Always loved footwear. I'm quite tall and slim, and I just felt like shoes were always the easiest thing to find. And so I began to kind of fascinate about building my own footwear label.
Wow.
And I would kind of do some drawings, and then I signed up to classes at London College of Fashion and Prescott and Mackay, and started to learn shoe production, and really got engrossed in it to start building out my own line. And I had this idea for a kind of semi bespoke footwear, and I loved it. I was just loving every minute, sourcing leather, doing the designs, and pitching for funding, and really starting to build this thing out. And so the day job was just there to kind of fuel the spend for the shoes. Unfortunately, we hit recession, and I was kind of a little bit knocked sideways in terms of shoes are quite money intensive. And my backers were like, actually, let's just hit pause for a bit. And so I found myself at a crossroads, loving all things style and color and fashion, but equally just a bit trapped. And I was in kind of trends and branding and just loving it, but not fully loving it. Anyway, a friend of mine said, I've got this friend, and I think, they really need some support with looking for a new outfit for a job interview. But also, I think they're just feeling a little bit directionless, and you're also in that zone as well. So maybe, but you're a great listener, and I know that you'll be able to offer some gems. Anyway, we got talking, and I offered them some advice, and they ended up pivoting in a brand new direction and looking cute while they did it. So I was like, oh, this sounds really great. I love this. I'm like literally just offering pearls of wisdom and talking to people. I just really enjoyed getting under the skin of how people show up and why we stand in our own way. So that led me down to study kind of coaching, one-to-one coaching, executive coaching, and also group coaching. And those individuals that I had started to do like one-to-one, what I called style therapy back in those days, they invited me into their companies. They, word of mouth spread, and I started to get a nice batch of clients that I was working with. And through that, I ended up at a tech company, and I was looking for a way to build out a portfolio career at this time. and I started with a tech company called Daddy. And initially, I was just there to support with like marketing and maybe organizing events. And for me, it was great. It was like a bit of a filler position to start with, because I was lecturing at the School of Life and doing this kind of coaching consultancy thing. But I started to see problems in their business, and I was like, there's a lot that's going down here that needs work. And I remember one night we all went out for a Japanese supper club, and I said to them, look, I want to pitch you an idea to support your team better, because I can see you've got some issues and things are only going to get worse as you get bigger. And I spent, an evening going home, mapping out my skills, thinking about what I could bring. And I pitched to them the idea to be their head of happiness. And they went for it. They were like, let's trial it for 3 months. And I ended up doing that for 2 years, rolling out like an internal happiness program, really shaping the culture. And they were entirely remote back then. And I just loved this work. I was in this perfect storm of doing that, still lecturing at the School of Life. So really getting under the skin of great ideas to help people find themselves in new ways, and also consulting. And then after I left Daddy, I just branched out on my own as a happiness consultant, consulting on happiness at work, helping people think about career change, transitions, but also what happens internally in companies. And I've just been doing that ever since. And it's evolved. There's been a bit more focus, I guess, on self-leadership, on, supporting teams to think differently. But also with my book, Love It or Leave It, How to Be Happy at Work, that's very much around giving people that agency to think about their careers differently. And that's what I've always done. And so I wanted to help people channel that and find their career potential. So yeah, that's kind of where I've ended up today.
I love that story, Samantha. And I didn't realize there was that part about the shoes as well, because I'm a fellow shoe connoisseur. So I was like, oh, even better. But I love the way that, you've been able to bring all of your skills into what you do now. And it's such, that when you took that time to go, oh, hang on a minute, I can see some gaps here, and I can see how what the skills and experiences that I have really fit into this. And I feel like that is such a holistic way of being around our careers that we need to kind of bring forward so much more of.
Yes, totally. I think, gone are the days where we can kind of just coast and drift through our career. And, we are feeling I guess, the pangs of wanting to be self-actualized a lot more now, whether that's been brought on through social media and more conversations. And it's just no longer okay to sit in work that feels too small for you, like a really, tight coat. It's just going to ripple out into other areas of your life. So I really want people to just take it slowly. I don't advocate, massive work revolutions. It's like slow iterations, to design a better way of being, a better way of feeling, because we spend a lot of time at work. And the younger generation now are really starting to notice that work should be something that they enjoy. They want to give their all, but they also want to have a life too.
Yeah.
And so the more that we start to iterate and learn about ourselves and know how we want to lead ourselves, we can find work that really fits in and become, who our spirits are. I believe that we're all sent here for a purpose and a reason. And if we're not fulfilling that, we're kind of not doing our mission correctly.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's kind of that sense of emptiness when you're just playing one small role, and it
Yeah.
can feel incredibly like you're not, really living your full potential. We all have so much potential to give, and to create, and yet we're kind of a lot of the time playing so small. I
Yeah.
definitely agree that in terms of what you said about, being able to just take something small and maybe try and play with it. I think that's so important, because when people maybe are in a job or in a career where they're not enjoying it, and they kind of, social media is really good at making everything look like you have to be really radical these days. And like, you have to do all these radical things to do something you enjoy. But like you say, if you just take a small thing and just try and play with that in what you're doing, that's a great kind of like mini experiment you can start doing.
I totally agree with you. I think that's the lost art of play. I think you really touched on it there, is that we need to make an invitation to play every day. It's easy when we're young because everything feels fun and free, and there's not so many responsibilities. And the reality is that as we grow up, there's the mortgage, there's the kids, there's maybe we don't have kids, but we have aging parents. Like lots of different things start to shape the reasons why we don't do things. But if we can invite a little bit of play day to day and just think, what could I do differently? How could I look at my career through a different lens? What am I missing here? What are the things that really do light me up that I've been suppressing in a box? And actually, if I just allowed it to become maybe a little hobby that I did after work or something like that, we could start to edge closer towards what we're really aligned to do. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It resonates so much with me because I feel like that's almost what I kind of did with my career. So I was in marketing before I was in sort of company culture.
Yeah.
And very much what I was doing as when I became a manager, I started bringing a lot of the kind of coaching tools that I was learning in my kind of self-development journey into work, because I'm a bit of a personal development junkie. So everything that I was kind of learning in the evening, all the courses I was going to, I was like, oh, I might try this with my team and see how that fits with them. Because I was really enjoying this area of work. And then I was bringing that in. And so actually I kind of, the team I was managing, I was bringing those new skills I was learning into the company. And I was like, oh, actually, I'm really enjoying this kind of work.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, I think, just taking those bits that you really bring you some joy and playing with it, I feel like is a great action for people to take after this podcast, which is always nice.
Yeah, definitely. I think in my book, I really get people to think about where they can start taking action. So is it that actually the work that you're doing feels like it's not aligned because maybe you're not working with the right type of people, or maybe there's other people that you'd like to partner with, or maybe there's certain aspects of your role that you want to hack and play a bigger game in, or maybe it's actually you've just grown bored of the industry. All of these different moving parts allow you an element of play or discovery, and just take time to peel away at those layers.
Yeah, I love that. So you briefly mentioned earlier, Samantha, about self-leadership, and this is a topic that you talk a lot about. Would you be able to explain a bit more what that is and why it's so important?
Yeah, I think self-leadership is, I think it's the main anchor for which we are using to steer our decisions and how we show up in the world. And I think there are kind of four different dimensions to leadership that I try to instill with my clients and try to instill within myself, because I always experiment on myself and see how that's going to work, and learn and really start to see where my clients might be lacking in their own self-leadership. And so I think self-leadership, it's really important to, one, start to understand how you set goals, how you think about your own version of work, well-being, your performance goals. Are you setting those with kind of intention, purpose, and meaning? And when we look at self-leadership, it is about moving in a direction that feels right, noticing some of those negative scripts that come up for you, notice where you keep falling into deep cycles. When we can have that conscious awareness of destructive thought patterns, we can start to move towards ways in which we'll show up and feel better. But if we're not aware of our thought patterns, our foibles, some of that negative critic, it's of course not going to be easy for us to set great goals. It's not going to be easy for us to move with that intention. I also think that it's really important to look at your energy and your performance throughout the working day, throughout the working week. What are the ways that you feel effective? What really starts to eat away at your motivation? And how do you harness your attention throughout the day so that you're making critical decisions, you're being effective, and you know how to refuel and restore yourself? Because that recalibration process is going to be able to fuel your creativity, your ability to lead a team, your ability to spot solutions to problems. If we're not looking after our energy and our performance, all of that falters. I think the third thing that's really important when we think about self-leadership is noticing where you fall into or where imposter syndrome creeps up. And this is about aligning your confidence, knowing how to skyrocket your confidence, and being that cheerleader for yourself knowing how to make competent decisions, knowing when to push yourself, and knowing actually where there might be a bit of a skills misalignment that's eating away at your confidence. So I think knowing how to skyrocket your confidence in your strengths is really powerful as a self leader. Because if you can't do it, there's no way your team are going to be looking to you to gain that awareness piece around how they can lean into their strengths as well, and how you can also communicate to be heard. I think something a coach said to me a long time ago is that we train people in how we want to be treated. So knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, knowing how you can confidently speak about yourself is so powerful, for you to be that, force of nature. And I think the last thing when it comes to self-leadership is just learning how you create safety and connection, thinking about your relationships, your support systems. What do you need to continuously cultivate for success? Within that as well, it's like, how do you then align the other things, the things that eat away at your ability to build great relationships? Maybe it's your alignment with tech, the way that you work, your ability to keep commitments. Really managing your boundaries, I think, is so powerful as a leader, and knowing when to say no. So feeling free to drop commitments that don't work, but being able to say no with kindness. So I think all of these different spectrums, this is what I try to support leaders with when I take them through my Be Happy First program, is to really look at how am I faring across each of these different pillars? What's not, where am I not strong enough to kind of set direction with intention? Where do I let my negative patterns run away with me? What might be eating away at my confidence? And maybe actually, if my support system isn't strong enough, this is where I need to kind of lean into people a bit more as well, and notice why I don't do that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so much wealth of information there, Samantha.
Mm.
Thank you so much. One thing I want to tap into there is that piece around confidence,
Mm.
because what I hear a lot from a lot of people that maybe struggle with their confidence is this idea that they have to kind of fake it. So they have to put on kind of this persona, or they have to personify a style of leadership, rather than kind of really drawing into that authentic confidence
Yeah.
that's inside us. How do you feel like we can differentiate between that, or begin to kind of go down that more authentic confidence than trying to kind of fake it till we make it
Yeah.
almost way of being?
I think it's really powerful to sit and think about how you can define confidence for yourself, because everyone will have their interpretation of confidence. For some people, the fake it till you make it really does work, and that allows them to, Amy Cuddy always talks about your presence and your the way your stance, and how that can make you feel empowered. And the more that you lean into a certain type of posture, you begin to become it. And I do believe that there is some sentiment around, really looking at aspirationally, who do you want to step into, who do you want to become, and monitoring your day-to-day activities to move towards that. I think what might be useful before that is to really look at the ways that you can build self-efficacy. And Albert Bandura is a psychologist who studied, self-efficacy and how that relates to our confidence and our ability to do things. And he says, we've got to really take stock of where are the things that um, you put your magic on that really do come alive. What do people thank you for? What are some of the ways in which you have succeeded? Keep your achievement diary. I always suggest to write down a little achievement diary. What's gone well this week? Where have I succeeded? What have I done that I've pushed myself out of my confidence, out of my comfort zone? And the more that you can start to see it in black and white, the more that you can start to appreciate, oh, you know what? Actually, I'm really good at being able to critically assess a situation, and not be emotional about it. Or I'm really good at problem solving under stress. Or actually, I'm the person that people come to when they want honest critique. Or you start to tease out these little nuanced arenas and situations that empower you, and where you've empowered other people. And the more that you can take time to do that, you then can look at, okay, who are some of the people that I admire that are doing that? how are they stretching themselves? Who are they surrounding themselves with? What books are they reading? What are the things that they are using to go up this continuous ladder of self-improvement and building their competence in that area? And what can I do to start using or utilizing some of that in my day-to-day life? And I think the more that we can have this honest audit of ourselves, start to look at what's happening around us and start to evolve in that way, we can then boost our confidence. And I think it's also about the people you surround yourself with. You know, if you are the sum of the people that you spend the most time with, how are they supporting your confidence? Are they speaking words of affirmation in your presence? Are they, noticing where you're doing well, or are they actually diminishing that and adding to your negative critic? So all of this can help you start to find your authentic voice. It does take time. This isn't something that is this isn't something that's going to be, an overnight thing, but it's about just being very considerate in your steps and noticing that confidence is a muscle that needs to be exercised. You have to take it to the gym daily. But the more you know yourself, the more you can get into that groove and end up being more and more of your authentic self.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there are some fantastic practices, Samantha. So actionable. And I love that, someone always said to me, like, celebrate your wins. Like, you have to celebrate your wins as well. Those small moments of success that, they're perhaps not huge things, big goals, but actually those small moments that actually really mean something to you, making sure you're taking stock of those. And it's not something that we do very often because we're so self-critical. We're always thinking that wasn't good enough, or, we've got that kind of voice in our head, kind of critiquing everything that we do.
Yeah.
And actually taking that practice into our sort of day-to-day habits is fantastic for building up that confidence and that sense of self-worth as well.
I think it's really important that we notice what is eating away at our self-worth. I think for some of the best leaders out there, it just takes, sometimes they could be knocked down by a feather if somebody has said the wrong word or it's hit them in a tone in a different way. And the more that we can take time to understand our triggers, we're less likely to be blown from pillar to post. So again, this self-leadership piece is about really noticing, okay, where do I flare up? What are some of the ways in which people antagonize me? And, often when we are in situations with people and we feel aroused in a negative way, there's always something we need to kind of learn or accept or welcome or change in our behavior. Everything is a warning sign. And so if you can get into that notion that my relationships are containers for growth, everything around me is an opportunity to learn, and take that time to just be present with yourself.
I feel like some of those should be affirmations, Samantha, what you just said there. I'm like, maybe we should all write these down and have these as morning affirmations.
Definitely.
Oh, so Samantha, something I really want to kind of question you about is, you've worked globally with some amazing foundations and organizations and tech companies, and there's an impressive lineup of brands that you've worked with. But what I would love to ask you is, what still surprises you about the experience we create about work and company culture? What kind of continues to come up for you that you're like, this still surprises me?
So, I think there are quite a few things. I think one, oftentimes when I speak to companies and they're trying to decipher or trying to create what their culture is, they either haven't really set the direction for what success looks like, or there's not enough co-creation. So it's too much top down, or even then not everybody's on board with what this tone looks like. What is the tone of our culture, and how does it really align to our values? And are we doing what we say we're doing? Are we creating, yes, we're creating a consumer brand and maybe we're building these amazing products and services, but actually our employer brand is very negative. So I think really starting to align with that and really start to think about what do their values actually mean, I think is one area that brands could do with just taking a bit more time. I think another is I work with companies to really ascertain like 4 key pillars of employee well-being and engagement and happiness, and they look like head and heart, which is really noticing, how are you helping your employees to feel psychologically safer at work? What are some of the issues around that affect their mindset, their resilience, their ability to self-lead? I think communication and connection is another key pillar. This is where companies probably aren't getting it right, especially if they are hybrid or virtual. It's noticing what are some of the blocks and the barriers to great communication. What does great communication look like for us? Especially, what does it look like in crisis? What does it look like in conflict? How do we start to get to the heart of some of those underlying emotions or underlying nuanced ways of speaking to each other that can get the best out of us? I think another area is really noticing where that misalignment might be in a company between mission and what some of the employee values are, what are some of the processes and systems that could be adopted differently. And I think digital and mindful is always going to be a huge area for companies to work on. How are we creating a work environment that isn't just perpetuating more and more stress, but inviting opportunities for calm and creating more of those preventative measures versus just being reactive when things have gone too far. I think those are the kind of core areas. And I think also just knowing which behaviors do we want to model. I think sometimes there can be a directive and a tone that's set, but actually nobody's modeling that behavior for it to follow through. So that's often a key area that I think companies could do better in.
Yeah, definitely. And I must agree with you on the setting of the direction, because I'm sure you get this as well, where, people want to hire you for a particular initiative that they're running, and you're kind of like, okay, but how does this play into the larger piece of your kind of direction of the culture and where you're actually going? Because too often it's really easy just to kind of popcorn style, just have all these crazy initiatives all the time. And, oh, well, we did this last year and we're doing this year. And it's kind of like, but how does this all feed into the flow of where you're going? Like, really. And sometimes I think as a coach, asking them that question helps them kind of take a step back and go, oh, they haven't thought about that bigger picture.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that sometimes there are all too often a lot of reactive events, see a pattern, let's adapt, let's change things, let's do it quickly. But in the long term, that's not really going to have a lot of impact and influence. What they need to do is get to this higher level of really reflecting on, mentally how they're working. What are some of the systemic structures that need to be broken for this initiative to actually be embedded? And how can we get to a place where being more generative about our vision making, and the type of impact we want to have 18 months, 2 years down the line, like what does that really look like? Then they wouldn't be doing a lot of these reactive events, a lot of the ways in which they might be dealing with mental health or, thinking about burnout. It all just seems to be just lots of quick fixes versus a long-term plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Now, one thing I really want to pick your brains on, if that's the right term. I never really like that term, but it's the best kind of explanation, shall we say. Now, I've seen recently you're talking a lot more about neuroaesthetics. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. And I'd love for you to explore what led you to this topic and how it's impacting the workplace.
Yeah, so I guess for me, I am a continuous learner, much to my much to, I guess, my frustration is that I love learning new things, and I can feel very restless when I feel pigeonholed into a box. And I think for me, I really wanted to look at the world of well-being and workplace, happiness to another level. I felt like I've been doing this for quite a while. And I was like, what else can I do to elevate my work? How can I keep my purpose and my energy excited about the work that I was doing? And if I'm honest, I think I got to, was it 2021, where I felt a little bit burnt out, a little bit just not really super passionate about the direction that I was heading in. And I loved it. I could see the transformation happening in people, and you know, in companies, but something was missing internally for me. And so I was like, well, one thing that was missing was I wasn't studying or I wasn't learning anything new. And I started to take some courses in more neuroscience and neuroscience for business. And I did a foundational year in psychotherapy and like the educational application of arts. And I was like, my mind was blown. I was like, oh my gosh, I loved learning about psychoanalytical and psychotherapeutic therapies that could really support the human condition. And I was like, okay, I could see where we're heading to a massive mental health crisis, not only at work, but also personally. And I just love the infusion of art within that and how art really does support the brain to open up differently, to work in new ways. And I came across this book on clinical neuroscience and art therapy. It's quite an intense book, but I loved it. I just devoured it. And I think for me, there's always been something a little bit missing about the creative elements. I think one thing that I did enjoy about my trend and my branding days and also footwear was that ability to make things, the ability to creatively connect dots or to be surrounded by architecture and art that was enticing and inviting. And through my foundational year, we learned different modalities working with, you know, how do we work through emotions through clay, or how do we think about art? How do we think about our body and the presence that emotions might stack in our body? And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do more of this. And through reading that book on clinical neuroscience and art therapy, I came across this term neuroaesthetics, which is around, you know, really understanding how the brain, the mind, and the body kind of reacts to art, architecture, aesthetic experiences, and how we could start to use that for change, whether that's in environments we create, office environments, whether that is change in well-being, us deeper understanding our senses and the way that artistic experiences can transmute different ways of feeling, um, innovating, creating, and also just feeling at peace within our body. And so for me, I've been going on a learning adventure, and I've just started my master's at Imperial College London and RCA, and it's a nice blend of art, design, engineering, science, to really look at areas around work well-being for self. I'm really interested in the world of chronic pain management as well, and how that can be supported through the use of understanding neuroscience and art. So I think that's the zone that I'm in at the moment, and I'm really enjoying this experience to learn both, like to open up both sides of my brain, the artistic side as well as the scientific side, and just kind of create innovations and maybe technological products that can support this deeper sense of well-being.
Oh my gosh, it sounds so incredible. And I love that you're like me, where you're constantly like, what can I learn next?
Yeah. The thing is, I don't want to learn for learn's sake, but I feel like there's a part of me that is will forever be
Yeah,
curious. And, you know, when I talked about everyone's here for their mission to some description, I do feel that I'm here to ignite human potential in a different way. And that might sound a bit pompous, but I do feel that there's something around me that is driven to support people to be better.
yeah.
And I want to do that in as many nuanced ways as possible. So yes, if I can get in via the work angle and talk about coaching and psychology and help people have those interactions in new ways, great. But if I can also look at it from an environmental perspective, from the tone and the lighting and the sound, and, you know, stimulate senses so that we can be better, then why not?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I think I relate so much to that, is that, you know, you see so much potential in people. I certainly see it in my friends who are maybe, you know, playing it small, or they're kind of at that moment in their life, they're like, I really want to change careers, but they've got all these fears. And I'm like, I so wish you saw yourself in my eyes, because in my eyes, like,
Mm,
you like are a magnificent human being with all of these amazing skills, and you're so talented and creative, and they're like, yeah, but I don't, like, you know, you just want to kind of release them from that shell of just like
yeah.
that they've put themselves in. And so I totally relate to that sense of curiosity. I always really enjoy the talk by Elizabeth Gilbert about, I think it's jackhammers and hummingbirds, where she says some people are just like jackhammers. They find something and they do that thing their whole life and they love it. But some people are hummingbirds. So I always say that I'm a hummingbird because I get curious about something and then I kind of want to follow the trail to see where it goes. And so it's like I always feel like it's sort of kind of like flitting to something, and it's like, oh, this is intriguing me, and I want to know more, and my curiosity has been piqued. And so I love the
Yes.
idea of being a hummingbird in my life. I've come to the conclusion that I'm never going to be a jackhammer that sticks to one thing. That excites
No.
me because I'm like, gosh, what am I going to be doing in my like 50s or 60s? This gets me excited.
Oh my gosh, totally. I was definitely in that space of, because I remember finishing my foundational year in psychotherapy, and the original plan was that I would go on and train to become a art psychotherapist. And I thought, do you know what? That is something I could easily do in my 60s, but I just feel like now there's something else I want to push, and there's something else that is in me to create. And I just have to try this particular route that I'm on right now, and see where that takes me. And I think we all have to give ourselves permission to try new things. This might be a bit woohoo, but I definitely discovered human design.
Yeah, me
As a
too.
manifesting generator, I am here to do many things. And I shouldn't feel bad for wanting to be that hummingbird. It's funny, hummingbirds are like my favorite animals. They are, totally me. And I think that ability to give myself permission to try and to see and to follow my nose and to adapt and be agile is what's going to help me fulfill my longer term mission.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, this has just been such a gorgeous conversation with you, Samantha. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Where can people find you? Obviously, your website, I'll make sure that's linked in the show notes below. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience before we kind of wrap up?
Yeah, you can definitely find me on samanthaand.co. That is my website. You'll be able to kind of see all of my current speaking gigs, but also grab a copy of my book, Love It or Leave It, How to Be Happy at Work. Even if you're thinking about a career change, or there might be someone in your team that you're like, gosh, this could really help them to lean into work a little bit more, or it might be a friend. It's a great book, very practical, full of really timely nuggets that I think can help people make those changes and actually stick at those changes so that they're sustainable. And I think the last thing that I would just encourage people to do is to really integrate new ways of being with yourself. Understand what you can do to tweak your energy impact, your thinking, your emotions, and your resilience even, and start to step into this way of being through auditing yourself, through taking that time to just know what nourishes you, know what depletes you, and keep moving in the nourishing direction. And if you are curious about learning a bit more about that, my Be Happy First course is also available on my website as well.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much, Samantha. It's been an absolute joy chatting with you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for having me. Great questions.
You've been listening to Make It Thrive, the company culture podcast.